All right, we have one more set of Reconstruction videos, and this should be it. So, after all that, Reconstruction is full of promise, it's full of hope. Um, for a little while there in the South, things are pretty good for the black man. Um, Better than they've been, at least up until that point in 1866, and then better than they will be later on. So the 13th Amendment has addressed the issue of slavery, but not the denial of the U.S. citizenship or the fact that blacks had no rights. 1865 to 66, the Equal Rights League begins to meet in state and regional levels. They are forming leagues in all sorts of states to demand equal rights and suffrage. And freed people in the former Confederate states are meeting to get the same rights. Recently discharged black soldiers return home, and they believe that their government owes them the right to suffrage. We fought for you. We gave you our loyalty in the war. You owe us the right to vote. Others just feel emboldened to these rights because they've been freed and you've lived your whole life without these rights, so I deserve these rights just like anybody else. I am a person. I deserve these rights. Some black soldiers are called by the New York World the apostles of black equality because they carried the messages of freedom and equality each day. They were the ones who were arresting lawless whites. They were helping build schools and communities, institutions for free people, community institutions, not like mental institutions. They are giving advice about labor contracts. They're demanding equal access to public accommodations and voicing their opinions at political meetings. But keep in mind, these apostles of equality are also the men that the men in Tennessee started a 3-day riot over. So they're not readily accepted by the white community. We do get 3 Reconstruction amendments that you should know. When anybody's talking about the Reconstruction Amendments, you should know what they are. The 13th Amendment abolishes slavery in the United States. The 14th Amendment grants citizenship to all persons born or naturalized in the U.S., provides no state can make laws to deprive citizens of life, liberty, or property or equal protection of the law, and specifies that any state that denies male citizens the right to vote would lose representation in Congress. And the 15th Amendment, which prohibits the denial of voting rights based on race, color, or previous condition of servitude. It only applies to men. Women do not get the right to vote yet. We're still a long way away from that. But the equal rights leagues are out there pushing for this stuff. They are fighting for the rights that everybody gets in self-government. The right to vote, the right to vote on your taxes, the right to sit on juries, the right to testify in court. All of these founding ideals that are in our Constitution are now being voiced through black conventions. And they are also emphasizing educational opportunity. We want safeguards from white violence. We want to nullify the black codes. And again, a lot of people are not thrilled with this, but for a while there, these equal rights leagues are getting traction. They are going places, and black men in the southern states are getting their voice out there. Louisiana blacks had met in New Orleans, actually before the war even ended, to mobilize for political action. Black leaders in Norfolk, Virginia addressed the public to demand equal rights. Tennessee blacks meet in Nashville, and North Carolinians meet in Raleigh to promote the same goal. So all across these southern states, we do have groups of black men, and I'm sure there are women in there too, pushing for these rights. Free urban black elites in Louisiana and South Carolina commonly take on leadership roles. New rural groups start to form. The freedmen's agents, black soldiers, local freedmen, they start to make groups to push for equal rights and demand suffrage and repeal all of these discriminatory laws. In 1866, Congress passes that first Civil Rights Act, the Civil Rights Act of 1866, and they pass it over Johnson's veto, which provides blacks with legal protections against the black codes and against acts of violence. This act is going to allow blacks to the right to testify in court, not just for people of their own race, but to testify in court and enjoy the full and equal benefit of all laws and proceedings for the security of a person and property as enjoyed by a white citizen, which is the 14th Amendment. We get all sorts of new national officials under radical Reconstruction. Once the 15th Amendment is ratified, we see a black electorate that elects black men to office at all levels. Probably our most famous is Hiram Revels and Blanche K. Bruce. They both become first black senators. They're both from Missouri. Revels is chosen to fill out the term that was previously held by Jefferson Davis. So Revels had been born free in North Carolina. He had migrated to the Ohio River Valley before the war. He did get an education at a seminary in Ohio and at Knox College in Illinois. He was ordained as a minister in the African Methodist Episcopal Church. During the war, he had recruited blacks for the Union Army. He had founded a school for freedmen in St. Louis, and he joined the army as a chaplain of a black regiment in Missouri. He eventually becomes the senator. We also have Bruce. Bruce sat on the Senate from 1875 to 1881. He is the only black man to serve a full term in the Senate until 1966, so 100 years later almost. Bruce was born enslaved in Virginia. He had escaped from St. Louis to Hannibal, Missouri during the war. He had established a school for blacks. After the war, he studied in the North. He returned to Missouri in 1859. He enters politics. He moves up from the office. He starts out as a tax collector. Then he goes to the sheriff. Then he becomes a superintendent of schools. And eventually he's elected into office. He is famous for, not only being one of the first black men, but he introduces a lot of bills. He introduced bills to aid education and railroad construction. He wants to reimburse depositors in the Freedmen's Bank. He succeeds in having pension bills passed. He chairs the select committee on the Freedmen's Bank to investigate the cause for its failure and was on the Manufacturers Labor and Education Committee. There are 14 blacks who also serve in the House during this era, and 6 additional men are added from 1877 to 1901. But most people talk about Hiram Revels when they talk about black men serving in Congress. John Menard from Louisiana is elected to Congress in 1868, but he is denied his seat due to a contested election. They say, he's a black, he didn't actually win. South Carolina actually sent the most black representatives. They sent 8 to Congress. North Carolina sent 4. Alabama sent 3. Georgia, Mississippi, Florida, Louisiana, and Virginia all send 1. But for a while there, we have a black Congress. Maybe not all black, but it's the first time. And it will be that also the last time for a little bit. So we have the 41st through the 44th Congress. The 41st Congress is when our first 3 black males make their appearance in the federal legislature. By the 42nd Congress, 5 blacks are in Congress, and by the 43rd and 44th, we have 7 black men in federal legislature. This is the peak and also the fall until the Civil Rights Act. Most of the men had experienced public service before going to Washington, D.C. They are chiefly concerned with civil rights, education. They're looking for local improvement, protective tariffs, and a program of relief and intersectional peace for the Native Americans because they know what it's like, right? We do have many blacks serving as state legislators during this time period. South Carolina had 87 blacks and 40 whites in their first legislature. So the whites still control the state Senate, but in 1874, they also take control of the lower house, and that kind of ends the power there. It goes back to the whites. No black has had the position of governor, but 2 black men do serve as lieutenant governors. Samuel E. Lee will serve as a state speaker of the House in 1872. Robert Elliott will hold the position in 1874. Francis Cardozo will be Secretary of State and later Treasurer. And these guys aren't going to come up on your AP test. I just feel like we never talk about them. Nobody ever talks about them, and they deserve to be recognized because they are important members. And just because they're black and just because this didn't last very long does not mean that they were not important. And they deserve every bit of recognition as the first Continental Congress and the first woman and everything else because they did great things in the small amount of time that they had the ability to do that. So no, they probably won't come up on your APUSH exam, but it is nice to know. And again, we are running out of time because this actually gets really complicated real quick. And so we will wrap it up with one more Reconstruction video.